title of this week's CQM Forecast Alert is Economic Growth Rate in 2020 Q4 is 4.3% on the expenditure side and 15.7% on the income side. Why? GDP and personal income and consumption expenditure are endogenous variables in CQM, which could have a significant impact on the CQM forecast. It was surprising the statistical discrepancy dropped significantly from 367.2 billion in 2020 Q3 to minus 183.1 billion in Q4. As you can see in this graph, SD has a strong serial correlation. It is rare for SD to change by more than 500 billion from 367.2 billion in Q3 to minus 183.1 billion in Q4. In other words, three GDP approaches calculated from the expenditure, income, and production sides are not the same, unlike the economic theory. Sometimes there is a very large difference between them, like 2020 Q4 GDP. The table shows the economic growth rate on both the expenditure and income sides during 2020 Q1 to Q4. No one knows which economic growth rate is better, so BEA officially introduced Gross Domestic Output (GDO) in July 2015 as a better economic growth rate. However, economists still focus only on GDP on the expenditure side. I will describe the difference in how to handle SD between BEA and CQM. BEA calculates SD as a residual by subtracting GDI from GDP. However, it does not mean that GDP is better than GDI as economic growth rate. On the other hand, CQM estimate and forecast SD as an independent variable based on the characteristic of SD. And we define GDP on the income side as GDI plus SD. Therefore, CQM can calculate two kinds of GDP on both the expenditure and income sides. As seen in this graph, CQM always grasps the economic situation from both the expenditure and income side. The financial market contains important information for the economic outlook. However, CQM, especially the expenditure side, cannot effectively utilize financial market information. Therefore, PCA forecast, which can use information such as stock prices, money supply, and interest rate spread, helps complement CQM forecast. Conclusion from this week's CQM Forecast Alert. First, in reality, the three GDP approaches produce different economic growth rates, unlike economic theory. Therefore, as a second conclusion, multiple approaches are indispensable for forecasting the current economy. Third, Financial markets have important information on the economic outlook. PCA can reflect such financial information. PCA forecast work as a complement of CQM. This slide contains information about this week's detailed CQM forecast, the original developer of CQM, and CQM theory papers.